is Minding Your Business, the show for very diverse entrepreneurs. I'm your host, June Middleton. We have musical guest entrepreneurs here this evening whose new album, Clockhead, goes to camp. And I'll have them explain that title to me when we talk. It has been raved about in the Village Voice, Time Out New York, and the Boston Globe. It is my pleasure to present to you the Daniel Bennett Group. I loved it. Daniel, come on over and join me, please. You've got such a nice sound.
Well, thank you.
And I loved, ooh, I love the time signature on this as well. What was that?
Well, it was in 4/4, although it shifted between 4/4 time and 2/4, which means that occasionally it almost would feel like we were dropping a beat. Hopefully not on purpose.
Oh, it sounded great.
Yeah,
I loved it.
thank
I
you.
loved it. Well, I want to talk to you and everybody that's here, but let's start with you. Just tell me, how long have you been in the music business? And usually people don't think about it as a business, but it is.
It most definitely is. I have been in the music scene, the music business for maybe close to 14 or 15 years.
Come on, you're not that old.
Thank you. I've been leading a group for 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary as a band.
You're kidding.
Yeah, no,
wow.
it's been a wild ride. I started the band when I lived in Boston, and it's...
Now, is that where you studied?
I did. I ended up, I'm from Rochester, New York originally, and I moved to Boston in 2004 to go to the New England Conservatory, which is where I started.
That's Massachusetts.
It's in Massachusetts, in Boston, Huntington Avenue, the Avenue of the Arts. So I was really into the Boston scene for a while before I ended up here. in New York. Yeah.
Wow. Now, have you always played reed instruments? And I want you to explain that to us. But have you always played instruments that needed or used a reed?
I have. It's funny, when I was in 4th grade, my band director tried to get me to play trumpet because she said I didn't have the right lips to play saxophone. So it's a funny story. They actually asked me to write my top 3 choices, a school band, 4th grade. So I wrote saxophone, saxophone, saxophone. So I had my mind made up. I was like,
you left out alto, soprano.
I didn't care. Saxophone, you know, I knew what I wanted. You know, yeah. So
that's where you started, and that's always been the situation. Now, for reed instruments, which are what you play, this includes the oboe and. But the flute, you play the flute also.
I do, and the flute is part of the woodwind family.
But it doesn't use a reed, does it?
It doesn't use a reed, but the original flutes were made of wood. And it's...
like a piccolo.
Exactly, and it's part of the woodwind family. Just like, I mean, my saxophone is not made of wood. It's made of brass, but it uses a wooden reed, so there you go. So
okay.
So I'm a little bit of a woodwind fanatic. I enjoy...
I see here we have some reeds. This is a very small one.
Yes.
What instrument do you play this?
This is a very funny reed because it's got 2 reeds that are actually tied together. So it's called a double reed. Can I use this?
Oh, that's your water to drink out of.
I know.
What have you got on there?
You know what? It's all going to end up in the same place. You don't even want to know what I ingest on gigs. So watch. It's a double reed. So... makes a funny sound. It's 2 reeds vibrating together, and it creates. So it's an oboe reed, and it's not wet enough, but I do a decent amount of oboe work around town.
Now that's in the theater, mostly musical theater.
Yep, musical theater. It oftentimes calls for oboe, so I bring out the duck, and in addition to saxophone and flute and clarinet. So you know, depending on the situation.
Now, what is this one? Are these also reeds?
These are also reeds. So this little reed, this cute little reed, is a clarinet reed. And the alto sax reed's a little bigger, and then bari sax, tenor sax. I mean, there's all sorts of different sizes. Yeah.
Oh, that's really very interesting because with all the reed instruments that you play, this makes it makes you very versatile for being able to play jazz as well as musical theater.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, you have to keep a lot of options open. You know, in order to make a living at this, you have to be able to do a lot of things at once.
Now, is that what's meant by being a doubler in the New York City theater environment, that you can play more than one? You're not just sitting there in the pit playing the sax. You might pick up the oboe or the flute, or that's fascinating.
So producers save a lot of money by contracting small orchestras.
Oh, yeah.
And getting crazy people to play 5 instruments and, you know, lose our mind in the process. But
yeah, because I think for Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story, they might have had to have hired, what, 12 people to do the work of 4 or 5?
Exactly. And then when these shows go on the road, they make it even smaller. It's even smaller.
Okay. This is great. And how long have you had this group?
So I've been writing music as a band leader for 10 years. I've been working with these guys very steadily for the last 2 or 3 years. And in the jazz world, there's always new people that come in and out, depending on who's available. But these are some of my core musicians that I'm really excited to have with me.
Yeah, I know. We did a show with Asaf Kahati just a few weeks ago that has also played in your group.
You know, Asaf Kahati is a saint because he drove with me 8 hours from New York City to the western New York, Rochester, Buffalo area with my 7-month-old daughter in the back seat.
Oh my gosh.
But I will say, her name's Naomi, and she's very sweet. She actually is very quiet, but I thought he was very brave for, you know, coming along, and we do a lot of work together.
Oh, so that's terrific. He's an excellent musician, and it was a pleasure to have him on the show.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to talk to everybody, so if you'll just introduce everybody who's here, and then we can start off with Eddy. Just go ahead and introduce.
Do you want me? This is Maestro Eddy Khaimovich on the bass.
Terrific.
Do you want me to go around? Or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and that's Nat Janoff on the guitar, Nat with an N, like Nathaniel.
Mm-hmm.
And our good friend, compatriot Matthew Feick is on the drums.
Oh, wonderful.
And I met Matthew on a theater gig. Matt does a lot of theater work in town, so that was our connection. Yeah.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, Eddie, let's start with you. You're playing one of my favorite instruments, the bass, and Ehud Etun, is that the correct pronunciation for his name? He was recently on the show. He's also a bass player.
Yep.
He plays double. He calls himself a double bass player. So I know that he was classically trained.
I play the double bass too, actually, and I'm also classically trained. I play the upright bass, and I play classical chamber music and jazz on that also. But we're using this bass. It's a very special instrument, actually, that was built especially for me, that we're using for this band today.
Well, it sounds great sound. Great sound. And I have to mention, my brother's a bass player. So
this is
that's
awesome.
why I love the instrument so much. And where did you study? You're from Israel, yes?
That's correct. I was born in Lithuania, former Soviet Union. I moved to Israel when I was 12.
And is that where you studied?
I started music in Israel, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I studied a little bit at the Rubin Academy in Jerusalem, but not too much. I was already working a lot. I started as a classical musician. I started jazz only when I was about 21.
Now, you were classically trained, weren't you? Because, I mean, you've played with symphony orchestras?
Yeah.
And in the opera?
Not in the opera, but in symphony orchestras. I played, particularly, I was fortunate to be the principal bass of the Young Israel Philharmonic, and I was in the bass section of the Israel Philharmonic.
Oh, that is terrific. Now, at what point did you transition from classical to jazz? Or do you still play classical?
I still play classical. I actually played with some orchestras in the city, but lately I've been mostly concentrating on classical chamber music.
You have a chamber group that you play with?
I do play with a chamber group.
We've had chamber groups on the show. You must come back. Absolutely, with your chamber group. We'd love to have that. That is really wonderful.
But I play a lot of jazz in the city. I play a lot of jazz and fusion, and I do studio sessions and R&B in different styles.
Well, it's the classical comes through, and but I love the electric bass. A lot of bass players, though, for jazz usually play the acoustic, the upright. Is that not true?
In acoustic jazz and in more traditional jazz or different kinds of remakes of the traditional jazz, yes, but electric bass is also is common in more contemporary jazz, in fusion, in such guys like Jaco Pastorius. They have brought it to the traditional jazz as a matter of fact, and of course in Motown, R&B, and all this, somehow it has to do with jazz also in a way.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Well, that's terrific. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Nat, if you can just pass the mic to him, I'd like to talk to Mike next. Hi, and welcome to the show.
Hello.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
And has the guitar always been your instrument?
No, I started on piano.
You're kidding.
When I was really young, and when I was in, I think, 3rd grade, and then I got into bass. And then when I was 15, I got into guitar, actually.
Now, what made you make that transition? I mean, what?
I saw Eddie Van Halen on MTV play guitar, and I thought it was amazing. And I said, that's the sound, that's what I need to play. I need to do that. That's what I'm hearing. So, but I loved improvisation, so that led me into like jazz music in a funny way. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of improvisation, but at the same time, there's a lot of discipline.
Right.
In playing jazz as well. And a lot of people don't understand or realize that,
That's true.
or aware of that.
That's true.
And because I know that Horace Silver, who unfortunately passed away today,
Yes.
He was one of my brother's main mentor and instructors.
Wow.
And he used to complain about, oh, he's so tough on me.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Okay.
So that's why I say there's a lot of discipline there.
That's
A
true.
lot of discipline to make it look like it's easy when you finally get.
That's right. That's
in
right.
front of the audience or in the studio. And now, where did you mainly study? And do you teach at a summer jazz camp?
I do. I have. I've taught at the William Patterson Jazz Camp, Montclair State. But I studied. I had a bunch of private teachers growing up, and eventually studied with. I found some great people in New York, like Rick Molina. I studied with who does Wicked now, but he's a great guitar player. And then he helped me get into William Patterson. I went to William Patterson for 4 years, and then I think just playing with great musicians. You know, I learned a lot
Now,
that
you
way.
play regularly at the 55 bar, and
Yes.
you have your own band that you're welcome to come back.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and Matthew, welcome.
Thank you.
You're sort of, it's a rumor that you're one of the busiest drummers in New York.
Yes, that's correct, actually.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's not easy to say that as a musician at any time.
Yeah.
So to be busy, that is wonderful. Well, you always have to have that percussion.
Yeah, exactly.
Always. Now, are you originally, though, from the West Coast? Or
I'm
you
from
went to
Pittsburgh.
school in the West Coast, didn't you?
I did. I'm from Pittsburgh originally.
Oh.
And then I was on the West Coast for a little over 6 years. LA, then San Diego, and then decided to come back to the East Coast, and that was about 4 years ago, so I've been here since.
Now, you also teach, and you write and compose. You're teaching at the Long Island City Academy of Music?
Yes, with Daniel.
You're on that faculty also,
Yep.
aren't you? Okay. And you also do a lot of on and off Broadway work,
Correct.
musical theater?
Yep, that's actually how Daniel and I met each other, I think he mentioned.
Ah.
But
Now, have you also played in symphony orchestras?
yeah, it's hasn't been recently. I played, well, I guess I played in the Manhattan Wind Ensemble. That's the most
yes,
recent
yes,
sort of,
yes.
that's
And
a sort
that's
of
mostly
symphonic
classical.
band. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, at this point, it really sounds like we could really play some Chopin, but with your classical
could.
background. But
Don't get him started, or you will.
But I'd like really, I think we'd like to hear some more of your sound.
Oh, that'd be great.
So why don't you just go
Yeah.
back and tell us what it is that you're going to
Wonderful.
play?
Great. So we're going to do a song called, it's Nat's favorite song, so we like to keep the guitar player happy. This is called,
It is my favorite song.
it is.
Oh, wonderful.
It's called Paul Platypus.
Okay. great. Is that from your album, Clock Head Goes to Camp?
It's actually not. It's actually a new song, brand new.
Oh,
brand
wonderful.
new.
Then you debuted it here on the show.
We did.
That's terrific.
We did.
That is terrific. Well, I know that you've had rave reviews about your album, and that now the last piece you're going to play, is that from the
Yeah,
album?
the last piece is from the newest album, Clockhead Goes to Camp. It's called Patience.
Okay, okay. This is great. This is really, really wonderful. Well, you've been getting excellent reviews, and your website, if someone wants to find out about the album.
Yeah, the website is danielbennettgroup.com, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, like Tony Bennett.
Okay.
No relation.
All
Not that I
right.
know of. You never know.
Right, right. Well, it's just, I look forward to it doing well, because it's gotten really great reviews.
Thank you.
It really has. And you doing very well also in getting it out in the public and marketing it, which is important. So we're closing in on time, and I really want to thank you so much for being here and being my guest this evening, because you've got a great sound, you're a great group, you're great talents. I love hearing the music. But I also want to say thank you to our crew in the control room, and I want to say certainly thank you to Ed Middleton, our director, and our caterer, and he's also my son, and he's just really terrific. And I also want to thank Mark Moas for of the New York Jazz Workshop for introducing us and bringing us together. He's been great. He's been on the show. Look forward to him coming back. And also to a very, very special thanks to Rich and Manhattan Neighborhood Network for making this show possible. You've been watching Minding Your Business, the show for just incredibly talented musical and business entrepreneurs. I'm your host, June Middleton. Please see yourself where you'd want to be. And in the last few minutes that we have left, I'd like you to play another piece for us, if you will. And you're going to play the flute on this piece?
I am. I'm going to play the flute. And I wanted to mention also that you can hear this group every Wednesday at Bocado on the Upper East Side, 87th and Lex. And
Terrific.
Tommy Jazz in Midtown Manhattan. And I'm doing an off-Broadway show next month called Swing Time Canteen, and they're really exploding right now. It's a really good show.
That's great news. That's great news.
If you don't mind the promo, my self-promo, that's all. I wanted to get that in.
No, that's fine. So before we run out of time, please, let's hear your last piece.
This is called Patience.